I knew it was over the night she rearranged my entire kitchen while I was asleep to prove a point about how I loaded the dishwasher. I want to be careful about how I tell this story because I spent a long time telling it wrong. I told it as a quirky incompatibility story. Two people with different systems, different tolerances for mess and noise, and the particular chaos that comes from merging two lives into one shared space. Told it that way for almost 4 years. It's a much easier story to live inside than the true one. We moved in together after 2 years of what I would have called, if you'd asked me then, a passionate relationship. What I would call it now is a relationship with a high drama threshold that I mistook for depth. She felt everything loudly. She loved loudly, fought loudly, apologized loudly, and then forgot she'd apologized and returned to the original grievance 3 days later like it had just occurred to her fresh. I thought that intensity meant she cared. I was not entirely wrong about that. I was very wrong about what kind of caring it was. The kitchen thing happened 4 months in. I'd loaded the dishwasher in a way she found inefficient and she'd mentioned it twice, and I'd nodded and then loaded it the same way again because I genuinely did not think about the dishwasher as something that required a strong opinion. She didn't say anything. She went to bed before me, which was unusual. I stayed up working and went to sleep around 1. In the morning, every cabinet was different. Plates where glasses were, mugs on the bottom shelf, utensils redistributed into a configuration that made no logical sense that I could identify. She was at the kitchen table drinking coffee, watching me open cabinets. She said, "Now you know how it feels when someone changes where things go without asking." I stood there for a moment. Then I said okay and spent 20 minutes finding the things I needed to make breakfast. I told that story at a dinner party once as a funny anecdote. "My girlfriend is so intense," I said, laughing. Everyone laughed. She laughed. I refilled her wine glass. The pattern underneath that story is the thing I kept not looking at directly. She would decide I had done something wrong, often something I didn't know I'd done, and instead of saying so, she would do something to make me experience discomfort equivalent to what she felt I caused. She called this evening the score. I called it confusing for a long time before I found a more accurate word. I started keeping track without meaning to. The keys that went missing the morning I had an early meeting and reappeared on the hook that afternoon without comment. The package I was waiting for that she'd accepted and placed somewhere she didn't mention until I asked 3 times. The invitation to her work event that arrived very late, after the RSVP deadline, when she knew I'd wanted to go. Each time there was a version of the story where it was innocent. Keys get misplaced. Packages get forgotten. Emails get lost. I chose those versions for a long time, because the other version required me to look at something I didn't want to see. The thing that finally broke the version I'd been choosing was my notebook. I keep a paper planner. I came home from work on a Thursday to find it gone. I asked her. She said she hadn't seen it. It was on the highest shelf in the coat closet, the one place I can't reach without a step stool. I found it 2 days later when I was looking for something else. She didn't apologize. I said she'd found it on the floor and put it somewhere safe, and if I kept it in a consistent location, this wouldn't be a problem. When I said she'd put it somewhere she knew I couldn't reach, she said I was being paranoid, and that was an exhausting quality in a partner. I sat on the edge of the bed that night and thought about the kitchen, about the keys, about the package and the invitation, about every time I had chosen the innocent version of the story and how many times she had let me choose it, had watched me choose it, had perhaps relied on me choosing it. I thought about the word paranoid. I thought about how many times that word had appeared in our arguments, how it always arrived exactly when I was closest to seeing something clearly. I called my sister the next morning while my girlfriend was in the shower. I told her one story, just the notebook. My sister was quiet for a moment and then she said, "How long has this been happening?" The answer to that question was the beginning of leaving. Not the end, not yet, but the beginning. Leaving someone you love doesn't happen in one moment no matter how much you want a clean origin story. It happens in accumulations. It happens in phone calls and moments of unexpected clarity and the slow collapse of the version of things you'd been holding together with both hands. I moved out 4 months later. I left with my furniture, my cat, my paper planner in my bag where I could feel it. She texted me 3 weeks after I left to say she'd found my favorite mug at the back of the cabinet. She asked if I wanted her to mail it. I said, "Don't worry about it. I bought a new mug. I know exactly where it is. I put it there myself and no one moves it, and that's a thing I get to have now," which sounds like nothing and is actually everything.